shortstop. Darrell Hamilton hitting second. Paul Molitor will be the designated hitter this afternoon. Robin Yount, the cleanup batter. Greg Vaughn will be hitting in the number 5 slot. B.J. Surhoff hitting 6th. Kevin Seitzer, who hit a home run last night, a 2-run blow for the Brewers, bats 7th. Dave Nielsen, the young catcher, hitting 8th. And Scott Fletcher at second base, batting 9th, facing right-hander Ron Darling.
Darling, with that 15-9 record, has really become the pitcher the Oakland A's can depend on here since they got to first place. Take a quick look around the field as the A's take their positions. Jerry Brown at left, Willie Wilson in center, and Ruben Sierra over in right. And around the infield, Carney Lansford at left, Walt Weiss, or rather at third. And then Mike Bordick and Mark McGuire over on the right side of the diamond, and Terry Steinbach behind the plate.
And at the plate is Pat Listash, who's had a sensational rookie year, hitting .298. Facing Ron Darling. The first pitch from Darling on missing outside for ball 1. Bluffs a bunt and takes ball 2, 2-0. Ron Darling, acquired from Montreal last year, right at the trading deadline, and that was the second time in 2 months that Darling had been traded. He came over from the Mets to the Expos for reliever Tim Burke, and now he's happier and, as he pointed out last night, healthier this season, and it's showing. 2-0 pitches in there, and it's 2-1 now to Listash.
From that center field shot that you just had a look at, if you watch Darling's pitches, if they're down around the knee, not much above the knee, that's when he has those real effective games, the almost no-hitters with the fork ball and the slider.
Goes after a rising fastball and misses. 2-2.
But that pitch right there, the high fastball, for example, he'll get by with that to Pat Listash, but it's Yount and Greg Vaughn and Molitor, hitters like that, that will capitalize on the high pitches from Darling.
And you talk to any of the Oakland starters, including Darling, they'll say, boy, having Dennis Eckersley in the bullpen has meant a world of difference to all of the starters. Fastball fouled away, and the count is even now to Listash at 2-2. He'll be followed by Darrell Hamilton and Paul Molitor.
Kenny Lofton, another candidate for Rookie of the Year. Along with Listash, the Brewers have 11 players that have stolen at least 10 bases. Got to go back over 90 years to find a team that's done that.
Philadelphia Phillies in 1901. There's a looper that will go out of play once again, and the count will remain 2 balls and 2 strikes. The 1901 Phillies managed to have that many people, and that has been Phil Garner's trademark. And to his credit, he hasn't been afraid to fail. He'll get thrown out of some big innings, but this is the standard of what this team could play like.
Even in these kind of conditions where it's damp and base paths not fast at all, he'll continue to run.
Here's Darling's 2-2 pitch, and it's fouled back. Well, we saw Willie Wilson try to go in the A's top of the first inning. As we talk about Listash's credentials for Rookie of the Year, there is Willie, the veteran in center field. You know, the name Cal Eldred continues to loom with a 10-1 record and 9 consecutive wins. He's got to get consideration, Jim.
A couple more wins could do it for him.
Listash staying alive and making Ron Darling work here.
Referring to Cal Eldred, the rookie sensation, 10-1, he'll be the first to admit that the time he spent at Denver early this year was very helpful. A lot of Brewers fans are saying, why didn't they call him up earlier in the year? He did not have a particularly good spring, and the time in AAA made him the kind of pitcher he is right now.
2-2 pitch and another foul ball. So Listash hanging in there to lead off this game, and he has already fouled off 9 pitches. Well, the Brewers have won 4 in a row on 8 previous occasions, have not made it to 5 straight. Trying to get over that hump today as Listash takes outside 3-2. There's the score at Yankee Stadium that we'll be watching closely. The Yankees leading the Blue Jays. And that score, of course, is posted here. And there's a man that all he wants is to win. He's got his 3,000 hits. Does Robin Yount. He wants a shot at another ring.
Boy, this has turned into some kind of at bat for Pat Listash. Frustrating for Ron Darling. And I would say the guys in the field today have a tougher time than anyone. As a pitcher and a hitter, even a catcher, you're active all the time. But to stand out in the outfield and the infield with the rain coming down, wet conditions, it's just going to hamper guys like Carney Lansford getting as quick a jump on the ball as they would under dry conditions.
It's a factor. So the 12th pitch to Listash coming up from Ron Darling. And then we're going to go to 13. In the Oakland bullpen, Mike Moore has been loosening up, and of course there's going to have to be a decision made by Dave Duncan, the pitching coach of the A's. There's Moore and Tony La Russa as to what the starting rotation will be, how many pitchers they'll use if the A's of course go on and clinch and then play in the LCS. Another foul ball headed this way.
Umpires might call time out here, go back to the umpires room, get a couple new sacks of balls and rub them up. You know, they start with about 4 or 5 dozen, and Listash has gone through a 14 or 15 already.
I'm going to try and get under here and reach that one if you don't mind. I'm going to could use that.
And then get it autographed by both Darling and Listash and put it in your vault.
Because Listash may be at the plate for as long as we have a break in the weather, which is not supposed to be that long.
And when we were kids, remember, hey, one more foul and you're out.
Yeah.
that's what they'd like to use that rule on Listash right now, the Oakland A's.
15th pitch will be served by Ron Darling. Three balls and 2 strikes.
When you want to run down, if you're Ron Darling, and just toss it to Listash and say, here, throw it up and hit it. You're wasting about 4 hitters worth of pitches there, and I still don't have anybody retired.
Three balls and 2 strikes. Darrell Hamilton is on deck, and if Listash has done nothing else, he has made Mr. Darling labor here. Up a fastball, and that will drift out of play as well. Saw the splitter by Ron Darling as he prepared to deliver that last pitch to Listash.
As Darling and a lot of pitchers that throw the forkball or the splitter, they will start with that grip, and then as soon as they get into the glove, they'll change to the fastball grip to prevent third base coaches or anybody on the bench that might try to steal a sign. So even though you see the split finger grip, most of these 3-2 pitches will be fastballs. He'll change it as soon as he gets in that glove.
Why, you think there are people on the Oakland bench who would be looking for such things? Time is called by Listash. He really wants to make a dramatic entrance here as he awaits the 17th pitch. He waited him out, and Pat Listash is aboard.
Boy, that is some at bat to take, what was it, 17 pitches and then draw a walk. Even though it's, you say, hey, it's just one at bat, it's the first hitter of the game, but a little on the demoralizing side if you're Ron Darling to throw that many strikes and then finally lose the hitter.
Well, he earned it, that's for sure, as Darrell Hamilton comes up hitting .295. with 58 runs batted in. Very quiet but solid performer in right field, mostly platooning with Dante Bichette, but lately it's been Hamilton in the lineup. They'll look for Listash to go. Second in the league in stolen bases to Kenny Lofton, and the A's know it. Lansford playing in at third base. There goes the runner, and the bunt foul off to the left side. Listash had a good jump on Ron Darling, and this is the problem all teams face when they play the Brewers who get a man on, and that is the concentration has to be cut off somewhat from the batter.
As you see those stolen base totals, and it goes beyond that. We saw Carney Lansford playing shallow at third. What speed does is it affects the way you position your infield. You get the infielders moving on the hit and run. It just creates more opportunities to get base hits and advance runners.
Runner does not go. Pitch missing outside. 1 ball and 1 strike. Darling is making his 3rd appearance and start against the Brewers. He's 1-1 with a no decision. Looking for his 16th win of the year. Duffy Dyer, the third base coach for the Brewers. Breaking ball and misses away. 2-1.
Ron Darling is an outstanding athlete, and as Duffy Dyer flashes that sign to Pat Listash, what you'll see from Ron Darling is he will vary his count. He'll come to the belt and pause for 3 or 4 seconds. Then he'll come for a split second and go to home.
Almost leaning the wrong way was Listash, but he got back safely and now calls time. Talking things over with Tim Foley, the first base coach. The Mets lead the Pirates in the top of the 1st inning 1-0. Magic number for the Pirates to clinch in the National League East is 2. Expos are playing the Cubs today. Braves have run into some rocky roads, haven't they, on the West Coast?
Thought that lead was rather secure, and by the end of today, depending on the game we're doing right now, the Braves could actually be in a position where they have the most tenuous lead of any of the 4 division leaders.
Yeah, pitching has gone to pot all at once, it seems, and not scoring any runs. Pitch out called by La Russa. Listash wasn't going, and the count is 3-1. In 3 balls and 1 strike, nobody out.
See, that's what speed does. Tony La Russa loves these kind of situations to try to outguess, and he was looking for the stolen base right there. Call the pitch out. Now he's got a 3-1 count.
And a drive hit deep to right field, but it's hooking and it's foul. Darrell Hamilton got all of that one. He has 4 home runs this year. And the count will be 3 balls and 2 strikes. Talking about that National League West race where the Braves lead is down to 4.5 games, but 5 in the loss column, and their magic number is 5. But they have to feel a bit nervous because Tom Glavine hasn't been right, and their big 3 have faltered lately.
Avery gave them a solid effort yesterday. They got beat 1-0, but they have not been the same pitchers as a group that they were in the middle of the season.
And I think losing Greg Olson has affected them in the clubhouse more than we might even realize out on the field. Three balls and 2 strikes. Paul Molitor waiting on deck for the Brewers, and there goes Listash on the 3-2 pitch, and a fly ball hit to center field. Should be handled by Willie Wilson. And that's the first out as Listash goes to first base. Let's check in now in New York with an update from Pat O'Brien. Pat?
All right, Dick, thank you. Here's how the Mets scored. Darrell Boston singles and scores Vince Coleman from second in the top of the 1st. The Mets lead 1-0, and the Mets are still threatening. Go back to Milwaukee. Dick and Jim.
All right, Pat. Paul Molitor with 12 homers and 86 runs batted in. He leads the Brewers in RBIs, and the big question around here is, will they sign him? And the press and the fans, you know what their answer is. What about management? Molitor is the DH. 1 out. Listash on at first base. Bottom of the 1st inning. No score. There's a breaking ball in for a strike. Some tough decisions to be made by Sal Bando and company.
A lot of potential free agents like Chris Bosio. Can't afford to keep him.
Molitor offers on a fastball. Fly ball to Willie Wilson in center field. Plenty of room. Makes the catch. 2 down.
Unfortunately, we've talked about low attendance here in Milwaukee, and the contract situation seems to be in the paper all the time, and it's taken away a little bit of what this team has accomplished, especially this guy stepping in right now.
Well, we have a very hearty turnout and a good one this afternoon despite the inclement weather. But if Robin Yount had not been shooting for 3,000 hits this year, their attendance, which is really up 300,000 from a year ago, would be even less than that. And A lot of people were complaining about the poor turnout in the 3-game series with the Angels just concluded.
Got plenty of them here today.
Yount hitting .257, 73 runs batted in, 2 outs. Listash the runner at first base. And a high chopper to third, and Lansford across the diamond to McGuire. And so after Listash draws a walk after 17 pitches, the Brewers go out in order in the first inning. Mark McGuire will lead off for the A's in the second inning, and the Brewers have responded with a shift in the infield. 3 infielders on the left side. And only one, Scott Fletcher, or first baseman B.J. Surhoff on the right, as McGuire takes ball 1. He's been bothered by a sore rib cage. 1-1 the count. Returned to the lineup last night after missing a few games.
One of the big improvements he has made. Watch the right elbow, almost like golfers talk about, having that soft elbow, very relaxed as he tucks it in close to his side. I think a little suggestion, Doug Rader will not take much credit, but just some subtle little things that McGuire has changed.
He grounds this foul down the third base line. McGuire has 40 homers and 100 runs batted in. He had missed 20 games because of the strained right side, but since he's come back has knocked in 7 runs in 10 games. Breaking ball is away. 3-2 to count to McGuire.
See what that soft right elbow does. Picks up the bat speed. You don't choke the bat. You have relaxed hands.
Drive hit to right center field. Chasing it is Hamilton, but it's up the gap and off the wall in right center field. McGuire will be satisfied with a double. A stand-up 2-bagger. 22nd of the year for Mark McGuire. And the second hit of the game for the A's, who have a runner in scoring position.
Even though he's primarily a pull hitter, he could take a pitch like this on the outside part of the plate, and that's bat speed. Instead of hitting it on the end of the bat, watch it, he gets it out in front and drives the ball. A lot of hitters can loop the ball out there, dying fly balls, but very few can drive it to the opposite field like McGuire did.
Harold Baines, the designated hitter. He'll be looking to move the runner along. First pitch is a fastball on the outside corner for a strike. Brewers do not play their outfielders deep. There's the way they line up in the infield, shaded around to the right, playing Baines to pull. Pickoff attempt at second to Listash covering. And McGuire gets back.
Good setup for it for Milwaukee, because Listash and Scott Fletcher in the middle of the infield will get their running in. With McGuire their way to the left, with Baines they shift the other way, so Listash is very close to second base there for a pickoff attempt.
0-1 pitch. 1-1 the count to Harold Baines. Carney Lansford on deck for the A's, who, if they win today, will wrap up the American League West title. Wegman's changeup is lined to center field, and Robin Yount is there to make the catch. Going back to second is McGuire. And there's one gone in the A's second inning.
Third baseman number 4, Carney Lansford.
Here is Carney Lansford, who has made a sensational return from a knee injury and off-season injury snowmobile thing that was supposed to really end his career. He fought back, came back, and has been tremendously productive for the A's this year. And if you talk to many of the A's in the clubhouse, they'll say he's the reason why the A's went from a 4th place finish last year to a division title perhaps this year.
It would have been very easy for Carney Lansford to feel contented with what he's accomplished in his career, as well as the success he's enjoyed here with the Oakland A's and their team success.
Takes inside for a ball, 1-1.
But to his credit, he spent a lot of time rehabbing that knee that you referred to, and that's why this season that the A's are having probably is satisfying, or more so, to this man than anybody else.
McGuire with the lead off of second base. Scoreless game, top of the second. Wegman is working inside to Lansford and is behind 2 balls and a strike. Wegman has not gotten much run support from his mates this year. the mask of catcher Dave Nielsen. In fact, in his 10 defeats, the Brewers have scored just 10 runs. He's lost a 4-1 score 5 different occasions. He's lost a 3-2 game on 2 occasions. 3-1, 1-0, you name it. So he has had bad luck that way.
Has been almost as consistent as Bazio and Navarro.
Changeup is in there for strike 3. And Lansford is out on strikes. That's the first strikeout for Wegman.
Carney didn't like the call, thought it was outside. He has a few words with home plate umpire Jim Evans. Let's take a look, judge for yourself. You see Nilsson's target, and even though he caught the ball outside, what Jim Evans' judgment is that was a breaking pitch, and it caught a piece of the corner on its way into Nilsson's glove.
So Lansford doesn't agree with that call, and so here's Terry Steinbach, who's hitting .276, 12 homers, 53 runs batted in. 1-0 the count to Steinbach. A veteran of past Oakland triumphs. Two balls and no strikes to him.
Jamie Quirk, who's been a backup catcher for Oakland for several years, has watched Steinbach from the bench, and he said, in 4 years I have never seen any player on our team make progress, not only as a hitter but as a complete catcher. And he's one of those key free agents they have to sign.
They've got a few. But it looks to me as if the A's are trying to just play a season for a season, almost the way the Toronto Blue Jays did in the acquisition of David Cone and Candiotti last year. They want to win now. They'll worry about next year. 2-1 as Steinbach was taking all the way. And now 3-1 to Steinbach with Walt Weiss waiting on deck. There is Weiss, who was injured and did not start the year at shortstop. He has been injury plagued the last few seasons, but a valuable cog in the multi-personnel format of Tony La Russa. Here's the 3-1 pitch, ball 4, and Steinbach's aboard. That's the first walk issued by Wegman, so the A's now have runners at first and second and 2 away.
It's early in the game, and sometimes walking a hitter intentionally can backfire on you, but I think that at bat was an example of Bill Wegman having respect for Terry Steinbach and saying Walt Weiss, the injuries you referred to, is not quite the hitter that he was a couple of years ago. And first base was open. He had a parking place for him. Said, I'll take my chances with Weiss. When he was healthy, he was getting a lot of key 2-out hits for them a couple of years ago, Walt Weiss.
So we'll see how Wegman fares with Walt Weiss, the A's shortstop, with 2 out and 2 on here in the second inning. First pitch is in there for a strike. Weiss is a switch hitter. You saw his batting average is .216, but a lot more effective from the left side of the plate, where he is hitting .238. Changeup misses 1-1, and the skies have brightened somewhat, and the rain has stopped. Pirates leading 4-1 as Lloyd McClendon has hit a grand slam homer for the Pirates. Talk about a team that's gotten a lot of mileage from reserves. The Buccos are 1. In there, 1-2.
That's why everybody scratches their heads. How the Pirates keep winning. They lost Smiley, they lost Bonilla, but it's the Lloyd McClendons, Gary Reedus on occasion, and Bell and Lean in the middle of their lineup. They're more than just a 1 or 2 dimensional team over there.
1 ball and 2 strikes. Nielsen sets out outside the strike zone, and Weiss can go with the pitch, and he lines it foul down the left field line. Weiss did not start the year at shortstop, was injured, and Mike Bordick did. And Bordick, who is the on-deck hitter if Weiss keeps it alive, was at or near the top of the American League hit parade for most of the first half of the season. One ball, 2 strikes, the count. McGuire, the runner at second. Lansford is on at first. 2 down. Let up pitch just missed Wegman wanted that one, and that evens the count.
You talked about the outfielders playing shallow, and here's where it becomes an advantage. Vaughn, Yount, Hamilton especially in right, and McGuire will have a hard time getting a quick jump out there up the soft dirt. Could be a factor here on a single.
Missing outside, and the count is full 3-2. We have seen a lot of changeups from Wegman in the first 2 innings. So with the count 3-2 and 2 out, the runners will be off on the pitch. There they go, and Weiss fouls it. Nearly held onto by Nielsen. So Weiss stays alive. The A's right now with the best record in Major League Baseball. They have won 93 games and have lost 61. But they've had their problems against the Brewers, trailing in the season series 4-3. Again, the 3-2 pitch. The runners are off, and Weiss again chops it foul at the plate.
How about the 2 shortstops today? Listash in the opening at bat, and now Weiss with a couple of foul balls. Looking back on that first inning Ron Darling had, that was a great first inning for him after throwing 17 pitches and walking Listash and then coming back and get the heart of the Brewers order.
And the A's trying to take advantage. They've had the leadoff man aboard in each of the first 2 innings. Willie Wilson with a single last inning. McGuire with a 2-bagger here. Here's the 3-2 pitch inside, and he lost him. And Walt Weiss draws a walk. So the second straight base on balls issued by Wegman, and the A's have loaded the bases with 2 outs. And Mike Bordick stepping to the plate. We mentioned Bordick with a terrific first half of the year, and he hasn't tailed off all that much, Jim. He's still hitting .299.
And playing just about every day. It's remarkable that he's been able to keep that average right around 300. Good example, I think, of allowing a hitter to do what was successful for him earlier in his career, even though it's unorthodox. Watch the open stance. This is the way Mike Bordick hit in the minor leagues, and he was successful. And for a while they tinkered with it, tried to change him. He wasn't successful. Raiders said, go back to the way you're comfortable, hitting 300.
It works for Carney Lansford with an open stance like that. First pitch is low, ball 1. Let's check the runners for you. Mark McGuire is on at third. Terry Steinbach at second, and Walt Weiss at first base. He's trying to jump in front here against Bill Wegman and the Milwaukee Brewers, who have won 4 in a row. And now Wegman falls behind 2-0 to Bordick. Trouble times.
Well, you get caught as a pitcher in these situations, and Bill Wegman is not quite the power pitcher that he was before the arm surgery. A little more of a nibbler, and all of a sudden there's men on base. You fall behind, you say, well, I don't have the power to challenge a hitter, and you continue to try to hit the corners, and this is what happens. 2 walks and a 2-0 count. Now you're right back to square one where you have to challenge the hitter.
And Bordick can get his bat on the ball and go with it to all fields. So here's the 2-0 pitch in there for a strike. Good fastball by Wegman, and it's 2-1. And you mentioned how Walt Weiss worked to Wegman for many pitches. The 32nd pitch of this inning is coming up now to Bordick with the count 2-1 and 2 out. Bases loaded for the A's, no score. Oakland batting in the second inning. In there again for the strike on the outside corner. So Wegman's come back against Bordick to even the count at 2-2.
Back on the corner. Similar pitch that Carney Lansford was called out on. Lansford's a slider. That one is a fastball. Same zone.
Back on the black. Here's the 2-2 pitch. Missed that one. And so a lot of things will be happening here with the count 3-2 and 2 out. The bases loaded. Runners will be off. There they go, and the 3-2 pitch fouled off straight back into the upper deck. Tony La Russa and Phil Garner. You're looking at two prospective managers of the year right here at County Stadium. Again, we go to 3 and 2 and 2 down. Again, the runners are off, and the pitch is grounded into the hole. Listash backhands it. His off-balance throw is in time. Again, Mike Gordick, and you're going to see some arguments coming out here as La Russa comes out of the dugout to argue with first base umpire Greg Kaat.
Wow, Greg Kaat doesn't have the benefit of what we have for you, but I think if you take another look, the Brewers got by with one right here. Remarkable play by Listash, but it's losing some steam, and right there, Gordick's foot hits the bag just ahead of the throw.
At best, it was a tie, and you know what the tie goes to? Yep, the runner.
Not quite there to first base. Now, Greg Kaat doesn't have that benefit. I hope we never get instant replay. I like the human element, but that's where the A's had a legitimate argument.
There it is from another angle. I'm glad they dropped it in football, and I hope they don't go back to it. Here's Greg Vaughn leading off in the second inning against Ron Darling. Takes ball one. Vaughn, with 21 homers and 73 runs batted in, is having a fine September after not getting on track for most of the season. Big cut way out in front of that one, and the count is 1-1. Well, the Blue Jays have come back with a run. Still batting in the top of the 6th inning at Yankee Stadium, with the Yankees leading the Jays 2-1. Magic number is 5 for Toronto. One and one with one out, nobody out, and Vaughn will be followed by Surhoff and Seitzer. And a drive hit deep to left center field. Jerry Brown makes the catch on the warning track. Didn't look like the ball's going to carry very much here. Let's check for an update. Maybe on that Toronto game. Here's Pat O'Brien. Pat?
Actually, we're going to go to Three Rivers, Dick. Pittsburgh with the first big first inning. Here's the grand slam you were talking about. Lloyd McClendon hits only his 3rd home run of the year, but comes at a nice time in the season. His 2nd career grand slam. They added a couple more runs. 6-1 now. They're in the 2nd. Back to Dick and Jim.
Well, like I said, Pat, a fine report on Lloyd McClendon's home run in Pittsburgh. That's where we should have gone. Here's B.J. Surhoff. Playing first base today for the Brewers. Takes ball one. Those are Surhoff's numbers, and well, anytime you get a catcher who can play other positions, you know how valuable he's got. 1-1.
When he was the #1 draft pick out of the University of North Carolina back in 1984, member of the Olympic team, still some question. Would he be a shortstop, an outfielder, a catcher? And now he can even play first base.
He could play on this Oakland team because they're using people all over the place. Yeah. Some of their infielders they've used in the outfield at all 3 outfield positions. Well,
for a manager, and when the designated hitter first came into being in 1973, a lot of teams carried 8 or 9 pitchers. Now they carry 12, so a player like Surhoff that can play all over becomes even more valuable.
The 1-2 from Ron Darling is in the dirt. 2 balls and 2 strikes. You know, you look at Darling out there, and David Cone won for Toronto. It isn't out of the realm of possibilities if those 2 teams should meet in the American League Championship Series that the 2 ex-Met pitchers could hook up. Yeah. Cone and Darling.
Neighborhood game.
One out. Bases are clear. Breaking ball, and it's 3-2 to Surhoff. Getting ready for a possible play at third base is Mr. Lansford. There won't be one as Surhoff draws a walk. That's the second base on balls given up by Darling. So the Brewers have a base runner.
Early read on the 2 pitchers, Wegman and Darling, is that they are not as comfortable with their stuff today as maybe some of their past performances in the last week or 2. Why? Because you see a lot of 3-2 counts. You see a lot more nibbling going at the corners. When they're on their game, it'll be strike 1, strike 2, waste a pitch, get the hitter out on the 4th pitch. We're not seeing that early in this one.
When you are the scheduled pitcher in a game in which there may be a rain delay, does that affect you when you know it's raining all morning?
You can't let it affect you, especially in a game like this. You plan to play no matter what until they tell you no game. If you start thinking we're not going to play, you're defeated before the game starts.
And there goes Surhoff, and the ball is hit into the vacated spot in left field by Seitzer on his way to third base, and overrunning the ball is Jerry Brown, and Surhoff is going to come around to score as the throw comes to the plate. So a routine base hit. That's Brewer baseball. Runners going. Spots in the infield vacated, and a run scores. There'll be an error here somewhere.
Surhoff looks in. Shortstop Weiss covering, and Seitzer perfectly executed. Here's where the wet conditions. Right there, Jerry Brown tries to field it to the side, never gets the glove down. Little tentative going around the bases because of the soft dirt. No hesitation on the part of Duffy Dyer, the third base coach, to wave Surhoff home.
And the Brewers take a 1-0 lead in the second inning, so an error is charged to Jerry Brown in left field. No run batted in for Seitzer, who is on at second base. One out, and Dave Nielsen, native Australian, catcher in a DH. He's behind the plate today. Takes a strike on the outside corner. We spent a lot of time in the Oakland clubhouse as well as the Brewer clubhouse, and I'll tell you one thing. They do not take the Milwaukee Brewers lightly. They are a pesky team and an annoying team, and I think one that they would prefer not to play in postseason.
It's always easy to look at a team and you look at the big boppers and the high batting averages, and Milwaukee doesn't impress you that way. They just get base hits, advance runners, steal.
1-1.
And score a lot of runs. Minnesota is the leading team in the American League average-wise, yet the Brewers have scored more runs, over 700 runs.
So add to that ingredient the outstanding starting pitching they've been getting. 1-1. Breaking ball on the inside corner, and it's a ball and 2 strikes to Nielsen, hitting 8th in the order for the Brewers today. They lead 1-0. They've scored against Ron Darling, who walked B.J. Surhoff, and on the hit and run, Kevin Seitzer grounded a base hit into the vacated spot where the shortstop, Walt Weiss, was. Jerry Brown overran the ball in left field, and Surhoff came all around to score from first base. And the runner going to third, and a ground ball hit to the first baseman McGuire for out number 2. They were sending Seitzer on the pitch, and he's on at third base with 2 away.
See what Phil Garner might be doing right here. You send Seitzer. Why? Watch Lansford. As soon as he sees the runner, what does he do? He goes to third base, and the hope here is that you get an outside pitch and you can hit it to left field. Darling came inside. Nielsen couldn't do that, but that's the design behind the hit and run with a man on second base.
So Scott Fletcher, the number 9 hitter, who had been out recently with a pulled hamstring, back in the lineup. He's hitting .281. Former Chicago White Sox, and a big acquisition by Sal Bando, the Brewers general manager. So there are 2 down. Seitzer is on at third base. The Brewers with a run in here in the second inning, lead 1-0. Strike 1 to Scott Fletcher.
Kids at home, you don't have to hold the bat down on the end of the knob to be a successful hitter. Scott Fletcher led the Texas Rangers 3 years in a row in batting average when he was there. Look how far he shortens up.
One ball and 1 strike to Fletcher, who then went to the White Sox, and he became expendable when the White Sox picked up Steve Sachs in their trade with the Yankees. And you look at Fletcher and Seitzer, big additions to the Milwaukee infield. And with Spires hurt and Lestash coming in, a whole different cast than what Milwaukee expected. Here's the 1-1 pitch. 2-1 now to Fletcher. On deck is the top of the order, Pat Lestash. So Darling would like to dispose of Mr. Fletcher here. An enthusiastic crowd here on a rainy, cloudy afternoon, and the rain has stopped, and it's gotten a bit brighter. 2-1 pitch lined right at Walt Weiss for out number 3. But the Brewers get a run. It's unearned. There was one error and one left at third.
Watch his gloves. He plays this ball a little too far to the side. Ideally, as an outfielder, you'd like to play the ball in front of you, maybe even on the throwing arm side. And that ball is way to the left of his left leg, and that's how it was able to hop under the glove. He would have never been in position to throw from there anyway.
There is Jerry Brown waiting on deck as Willie Wilson up for the second time in the game. Single to center field. First time up, and he lines it to center field again, and Robin Yount. And again, that's where the Brewers get an advantage by playing shallow in the outfield. For an update, let's check in with Pat O'Brien. I won't guess this time, Pat.
All right, Dick, an important game for Pittsburgh fans. Chicago at Montreal. Pitcher Chris Knobholz gives himself a little help as he doubles the score Will Cordero. Pittsburgh needs a loss to clinch, but it is now 3-0. Montreal over the Cubbies. Let's go back to Dick and my World Series partner, Jim Kaat.
All right. And my LCS partner, Jim Kaat. Boy, you're a lot of partners, huh?
Never miss a dance.
No, that's right. You were never the wallflower, that's for sure. Jerry Brown bounced into a double play in the first inning. Has committed an error. Looking to right himself as he takes a strike on the inside corner, and Wegman is ahead of him. No balls and 2 strikes. 2-1. Favor of the Yankees, and Barry Bonds has hit his 32nd home run as the Pirates are running away from the Mets. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Let up pitches up high, and it's 2-2.
That's more the Wegman pattern. You could see 2 strikes, knock Brown off the plate, then try to hit the outside edge, just missing those pitcher's pitches.
Up a changeup. Nielsen chasing it back on the screen, and it lands on it, out of play. You got to give a lot of credit to the Milwaukee Brewers, a team that has won 20 of its last 29 games. Now, normally you move into front if you were close, but the Blue Jays have won 18 of their last 27 games. This is since August the 27th. So you've got to credit the Blue Jays, because for a club that has faltered so many times in the past down the stretch, they have withstood the challenges.
And who knows what effect that'll have in postseason. You can make all kinds of observations, but the fact that they are in a tight race the last month might keep them a little more up or sharper. There's always a lot of debate. Is it better to clinch easy and relax for a week, or is it best to have a tight race right down to the end? I don't know that anybody has the ultimate answer to that.
I think both formulas have worked. 3-2 pitch and a high chopper fielded foul by Surhoff at first base. You can get an idea where the wind is blowing here from right to left, as you can see the skies brightening somewhat. Lights, of course, have been on since the beginning of the game.
You mentioned the fly ball that Greg Vaughn hit, and I thought the same thing. The ball should carry rather well with the breeze blowing, but maybe the heavy air is knocking it down a little, because that ball did not carry.
3-2 pitch, and Brown draws a walk. That is the 3rd walk issued by Wegman. So the A's have a runner aboard with 1 out here in the 3rd inning, trailing the Brewers 1-0. Sights are in with a few words for Wegman as Ruben Sierra comes to the plate. When Sierra joined the A's, he was unable to play because of the chicken pox, and Oakland lost its first 5 games, and everyone was clamoring for Sandy Alderson's neck. What a bad trade that the A's made. They're not saying that anymore. First pitch is a strike to Sierra, who fly to center his first time. Jerry Brown, the runner at first base. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. He'll give up the home run ball, Wegman, now and again.
That's the reason he said, as we started this game, I want to keep the little guys off base. So when you give up 27 home runs, most of them are solo shots.
in there for a strike. Looked like Sierra was looking for the fastball.
Well, Sierra's the kind of hitter you want to pitch forward, backward, to and fro, as opposed to in and out because of that high leg kick. Throw it high and hard, throw it low and slow. Nothing in between.
Saw the sign from Rene Lachemann, the third base coach. 1-2 pitch is slashed down the first base line. Sierra, of course, is a free agent and very possibly will not be a member of the Oakland A's come next year.
Now watch how he cocks that front leg. Almost similar mechanics to a pitcher throwing the ball toward home. Sierra picks his leg up and like he's going to throw the ball back to the pitcher.
Trying to keep Brown close at first base. He has 3 stolen bases in 6 tries. But with 1 out, trailing 1-0, Tony La Russa may want to play hit and run. Not on this pitch, and the count is even at 2-2. Mentioning these steal the third and the hit and run last inning with the Brewers. That's one of the moves that Tony La Russa likes to employ, sending Ricky Henderson, among others, on a steal attempt at third base. And a swinging bunt. Wegman will handle it himself, make the play unassisted for out number 2 as Brown moves to second base. Right now for an update, here's Pat O'Brien. Pat?
All right, Dick, let's go to the Bronx now. Toronto at New York, top of the 6th. Roberto Alomar slices a double to left and scores Derek Bell. It is now 2-1 Yankees. Good news so far for Milwaukee fans. That's Dick.
All right, Pat. So 2-1 the score at Yankee Stadium, where the Brewers lead 1-0 here, and the Blue Jays are 10-1 against the Yankees this season. They've had a big edge. Here's Mark McGwire with 2 out and a runner at first, takes a home run cut and misses for strike 1.
Interesting to see the contrast. McGwire this inning, and we may see Baines or we may see him next inning. McGwire gets very close to the plate. He can handle the ball middle in. That's why the Brewers shift him that way, primarily a pull hitter. So if you're coming inside to him, you better have a lot on it or he'll turn on it.
Pickoff attempt at second. Fletcher was covering and Brown gets back. Well, McGwire crossed him up with a double into the gap in right center field his first time up. And he was stranded at third. The A's loaded the bases and Mike Bordick grounded out, and a very questionable call at first base. It appeared as if he had beaten the throw from Listash, but umpire Greg Koss said no. Here's the 0-1, fouled out of play, and Wegman is ahead of McGwire, 2 strikes. McGwire, with 40 home runs, ties the second best total of his career. 5 years ago, he hit 49 home runs, and if he had not been hurt this year, Jim, it's very possible that he would have gone into the 50s.
49 his first year. Quick conference there. Nilsson and Wegman, 0-2 count. Every pitch critical at this time of the year, and they want to make sure. You want to go inside with a fastball, you want to go down and away with a slider.
Wegman is ahead of him, 2 strikes. Doesn't want to make a mistake here, and a looping ball hit into center field will drop for a base hit. Jerry Brown will come around and score. So the words were no sooner out of my mouth on a breaking ball that McGwire hit off the end of the bat. And Mark McGwire with RBI number 101 on the year, and the A's have tied the Brewers 1-1.
Yeah, oftentimes a pitcher doesn't want a catcher to come out on an 0-2 count. For this reason, you begin to maybe think a little too negatively or tentatively. I can't throw a pitch here. I don't want to throw a pitch there. And as a result, he tries to make a perfect pitch with that breaking ball, and it just spins up there high, a hanger.
McGwire is 2 for 2 in the game with an RBI. Here's Harold Baines, who lined out to Robin Yount his first time up. 1-1 the score here in the Oakland third inning. A big cut by Harold. Foul tip for a strike.
See, now you see Baines way off the plate. Quite a contrast to McGwire, and he's hit that way his entire career. Most of the time when hitters are away from the plate, they like the ball away from it. They want to get back off the plate.
Misses with a changeup away, 1-1.
And you can still get him outside, but it better be right on the corner. He's got great plate coverage from that position way back in the batter's box.
Slap to the right side. Fletcher with flips to second for the force. But the A's tie it up with a run here in the third, and we'll return to Milwaukee's County Stadium after this word from your local station. In the National League East, the magic number is 2. Pirates are romping over the Mets, and the Expos are winning 2. If those teams hold their lead, the Pirates will clinch a tie for the National League East title. Pat Listash will lead off in the bottom of the third inning against Ron Darling, and he promptly lines a single to left field for a base hit. Listash, with a walk and a single, has been aboard twice now, and you can expect the Fleet rookie with 53 stolen bases to be on the move, hit and run or steal, with Darrell Hamilton coming up.
A little less painful in that 17-pitch walk. At least it's one pitch, bang, base hit. But you're right, you can look for some type of action at any time with Hamilton and Listash. A straight steal or a hit and run.
Hamilton fly to center his first time up. Brewers, who have won 10 of their last 13 games against the A's. They've had Oakland's number. I'd like to meet them again in postseason. They will meet them in a 3-game series to conclude the regular season in Oakland next weekend. Lansford is playing well in at third base for the possible bunt by Hamilton. Doesn't go, and the breaking ball is in for a strike. 1-1. Weiss and Bordick communicating in the middle of the infield.
Yeah, Darling and Lansford definitely looking bunt because they both charge toward home plate. Now, oftentimes when a manager sees that, you turn around, put the hit and run on it. And Weiss will tell Mike Bordick who's going to cover the bag. Closed mouth, usually means me. If it's Bordick, it would be, ooh, you, open mouth, you cover.
Time called, 1-1 the count. Brewers scored last inning using their patented running game to advantage, helped by an A's error. 1-1 here with nobody out. Their fleet-footed rookie on, and time was called before the pitch. Pirates have batted around in each of the first 2 innings, and they're leading the Mets 12-1 now. Headed to clinch at least a tie for the National League East title, but the Expos are winning, and that would prevent the Pirates from wrapping it all up today if Montreal wins. Leaning the wrong way, and Listash just gets back. He was leaning towards second. Preparing to see
Darling holding his count, and he's got such quick feet. That's the key to a good pickoff move for a right-hand pitcher. Even breaking towards second, Listash was quick enough to get back, but not by much.
Outfield plays Hamilton around to the left. He's got a pretty good gap in right center field. There it is as Willie Wilson is shaded over to left center field. We're tied 1-1. Brewers batting in the bottom of the third inning. Milwaukee won last night in the first of this 3-game set. Getting back again, but you can see how much attention that the A's as a team in the field and Ron Darling and the dugout, including Tony La Russa, have to pay attention to the Brewers base runner.
Oh, you love this if you're Phil Garner. You want all the attention taken off the hitter. The only thing Darrell Hamilton has to be concerned about is staying in that box and anticipating the pitch coming home.
He'd like to see one. 1-1 pitch to him is a fastball on the corner for a strike. 1-2. Garner with the stopwatch.
That tells him how long it takes Ron Darling to deliver the ball from his first movement to Terry Steinbach's glove. And when he gets that readout, say 1.3 seconds, 1.6, whatever it is, that'll tell him how easy it might be to steal a base.
Darling's reputation is he is quick to the plate and a good move to first base. So the Brewers have to contend with a tough customer out on the mound today for the A's. Listash aboard. He walked in the first inning and singled to start the third inning. He does not go, and the pitch is lined to left field. Brown makes the catch. Going back to first is Listash. Hamilton hit it hard, and he is retired for the first out. At the conclusion of today's game, Jim and I will select the Chevrolet Most Valuable Player of the game. Chevrolet will donate $1,000 in the player's behalf to the Special Olympics.
I think that last at-bat, Dick, was good evidence right there of what the speed factor can do. That was not a pitcher's pitch by Ron Darling. I mean, Hamilton stung that ball, but he hit it right at Jerry Brown. But again, all the attention paid to base runners, oftentimes you don't really throw the ball where you want to in the strike zone.
And fortunately for the A's, they were playing defensively, Hamilton, as well as they could. Paul Molitor, the batter. Fly to center field his first time up. There is a slight delay as some fan took it upon himself to delay a game for some 20,000 fans and players on the field, and he has been escorted from the premises. Molitor coming into the game third in the American League with a .325 batting average, and he has been that consistent most of the year. So there's one out. Listash still a base runner. And there goes the runner on the first pitch. It's taken for a ball, and Steinbach throws him out. So Pat Listash is thrown out. Steinbach to Bordick covering.
Well, Ron Darling's ability pays off, delivering the ball quick, and Terry Steinbach, here's an indication of that. Look at the throw right on target, and then the third part of the play. That was not an easy pitch to throw from, down and away. And then you'll see Bordick with a nice quick sweep tag. Back on the base. Catchers love to see infielders back straddling that bag where they can just drop the tag down.
Perfectly executed play by Steinbach and Bordick, and for that matter by Darling. He races Listash, so there are two down. Bases are clear, and the count now is 1-1 to Molitor. Swung and missed on the last pitch. Took ball one the first time. And takes a big cut and misses 1-2. Darling has been victorious in his last 3 starts. He beat the White Sox going 5 2/3 his last time out, and the Twins and the Seattle Mariners before that. Corner for strike 3. So Paul Molitor is a strikeout victim. That's the first of the game for Ron Darling, and after 3 it's 1-1. Brewers took the lead in the second inning. An error by Jerry Brown allowed B.J. Surhoff to score, but it was a hit-and-run situation. Mark McGwire with an RBI single tied it up for the A's in the third. They're batting in the fourth, and Carney Lansford hits the first pitch in the air to center field, where Robin Yount makes the catch. So Lansford has been retired twice, and there's one away in the Athletics' fourth inning. Here's Terry Steinbach. Drew a walk his first time up, and last inning threw out Pat Listash trying to steal. Ball one outside. Steinbach is the best road hitter on the Oakland Ball Club, hitting .323. Lines this to left center field, and that may get through. Yount trying to cut it off, and he makes a fine play. Steinbach will go into second with a stand-up double. So the A's, with their second 2-bagger of the game, have a runner in scoring position with one out here in the fourth inning.
Terry heard you. He said, I want to show people I am a good hitter on the road. He's a pretty good hitter anywhere, anyway. Good looking swing right there, and the shallow positioning by Robin Yount, yet he has enough speed to get back there and backhand it and hold Steinbach to a double. Gets to the wall. It's probably a triple. With one out, that'd be significant.
Walt Weiss, who endured a marathon facing Bill Wegman before he drew a walk in the second inning, as the A's left the bases loaded and didn't score. But now they have a threat going with a runner at second and one out, and the count 1 ball, no strikes. It's Rene Latchman, the third base coach. Dave McKay is over at first. A's needing a win to clinch the American League West Championship. And a ground ball hit to the shortstop Listash. He'll make the play in time to get Weiss as Steinbach moves to third. 2 down here in the fourth.
Second baseman, Mike Bordy.
That important play, Terry Steinbach throwing out Pat Listash, that will be a factor in postseason play no matter who the A's hook up with, Milwaukee or Toronto. Toronto has Devon White and Roberto Alomar, base stealing threats, and we know about the Brewers' base stealing threat, so his ability to throw out runners will be a factor in postseason play.
Mike Bordick, who apparently beat out an infield hit which would have resulted in an A's run in the second inning. Very close play at first. That appeared to have been won by Bordick, but Greg Koss ruled that the throw by Listash deep into the hole nipped Bordick. Tony La Russa argued the point briefly. Now with 2 out, a runner at third, and the count 1 ball and 1 strike to the A's second baseman. Wegman has given up 1 hit in each of the first 4 innings. And once again, the A's with a runner 90 feet from the plate. Behind 2-1 now.
Not sharp today. The Brewers allow fewer runs, hits, and walks, and especially walks. And here Wegman already 3 walks and a lot of deep counts. That is not the normal pattern for Milwaukee pitchers.
In there for a strike, 2-2. Wegman has been struck on 12 wins for a long time. This is his 4th attempt at win number 13. Last year, Wegman went 15-7 and a very fine earned run average of 2.84. But he's had that 1 bad inning, and as we said, very little batting support this year. Here's the 2-2 pitch. Change curve misses, and the count is full to Bordick, and waiting on deck is the top of the order, Willie Wilson. Terry Steinbach with a short lead at third base. Here's the 3-2 pitch off the fist, and a pop-up to the center of the diamond. Scott Fletcher calls for it, and that'll do it. So the A's leave a man at third. They've left 5 on base. And after 3.5, it's a 1-1 game.
Game is brought to you by Speed Stick 110% protection. Subway sandwiches and salads made fresh before your eyes. And by AC Delco Automotive Parts. AC Delco, it's like buying time.
Well, tomorrow on CBS Sports at 12:30 Eastern, join Greg, Terry, Leslie, and Pat for the latest NFL news and information. Have the Bears become the monsters of the Midway? A look at Chicago's woes. Plus, Terry tries out with the Dallas Cowboys. Does he have all the right stuff? Find out tomorrow on the NFL Today at 12:30 Eastern. And the games. Atlanta, Chicago's the big one from Soldier Field. Not very far from here. Robin Yount will lead off in the bottom of the 4th inning against Ron Darling. 1-1 to score, and the first pitch from Darling is a strike. Lance Blankenship has replaced Jerry Brown in left field. Blankenship has played all 3 outfield positions, plus a couple in the infield. One of the big versatile killer bees that the A's have boasted this year, with Jerry Brown and Mike Bordick as well. And the count on Yount is 1-1. Check swing foul at the plate.
I tell you, the fans that are coming here Sunday, Dick, will get a real treat. In commemoration of Robin Yount's 3,000th hit, the Brewers have put together some kind of book here. Mario Zeno of their PR department. Every hit, every pitcher, how many they've given up. Great collector's item. And if you come to Sunday's game, you'll get one.
And it's nice of you to give this to me,
sure.
Champ.
Get Robin to autograph it. I'm going to get him to autograph it for me.
1-2 pitch, check swing, appeal to the first base umpire Greg Kaat, but Yount held back, and it's 2-2. It's your book, and you earned it.
He's got some nice comments in there from great hitters and pitchers of the past, even Pete Rose, and describing their respect for Robin Yount and what he's accomplished.
All-time leader in nearly every offensive department for this club. In his 19th year, wants to come back for a 20th.
Can't blame him. I mean, the body's in good shape, likes the game, still playing well.
2 balls and 2 strikes, and the pitch is taken ball through. Jerry Brown left the game with a tight left hamstring. Thus, Blankenship replaces him, and of course, no need to aggravate it with the wet outfield.
Nothing worse than a tight left hamstring this time of the year. Wet conditions.
Ricky Henderson knows what that's like. Here's the 3-2 pitch and a fly ball hit to right field. Ruben Sierra back on the warning track, but under it makes the catch to retire Robin Yount, who sent it far to right field. Right now, for an update, let's check in with Pat O'Brien.
All right, Dick, thank you. Toronto at New York, top of the 8th. Former A Mike Gallego with a nice play at second. Trailing 2-1. Toronto has just 3 more outs. And fellas, get me an autograph too, okay?
All right, Pat, and get your autograph at Jim Kaat any day of the week. No problem. Greg Vaughn, the hitter, with 1 out. Mike Gallego, of course, left a gap at second base for the A's this year. Bordick was penciled in. He had to play short, and Blankenship played second. A lot of mix and match go on by Tony La Russa this year.
And it's all been successful, mixing and matching. All of those players have done exactly what they had to do to keep this team in first place.
1-1 pitch to Vaughn, and he grounds it to shortstop. Walt Weiss. High toss, but McGuire's on the bag. And Vaughn's retired for the second out. Tony La Russa, who, well, he knows he can wrap it up today, but did you see any champagne in that?
No. Won't even talk about his post-season pitching plans yet. He and Dave Duncan, his pitching coach, have definite ideas, but they said you win first. Everyone keeps bringing up that 1964 Phillies, you know. Happens about once every 28 years, but it can happen.
B.J. Surhoff fouls it out of play. Here was a situation where the Phillies, I don't think, had longer than a 3-game losing streak all year, and then they lose 10 straight games to allow the Cardinals to come in. In fact, the Reds also had a shot in a very tight finish.
I would imagine fans might be flashing banners like that around the Atlanta Braves these days.
Pitch is inside, 1 ball and 1 strike. It could get too close for comfort if the Braves continue to slump. Here's the 1-1. That's low. 2 balls and a strike. You know, you can still get souvenir World Series tickets from the Philadelphia Phillies for Connie Mack Stadium in '64, you know, for a price.
Sure.
Games that were never played. Three balls and a strike to B.J. Surhoff.
Can feel the wind, the temperature change, the wind pickup, and could be a tough decision for the umpires. I think there's going to be some more rain before this game is completed.
They expect more. Ground ball up the middle and a base hit for Surhoff. Hit number 3.
Typical B.J. Surhoff base hit. He uses the entire field. And a lot of ground ball hits, a lot of line drive hits. Let's see, the umpires hate to see 2 managers burn starting pitchers like Darling and Wegman. They'd like to see this game completed. And yet they want to give both teams a chance to play an entire 9 innings, not a rain-shortened game.
Seitzer singled his first time up. I think if it does rain again, I think we're going to play through the rain. That seems to be the format. I know that the Blue Jays and the Yankees played in a torrential downpour last night. 2 out, a runner at first base for the Brewers. Breaking ball on the corner for a strike. 0-1 to Seitzer, who performed for the Kansas City Royals last year. And finds himself having a shot going down the stretch to get into the league championship series with the Brewers this time. Seitzer played some second base as well last week when we were here against the Orioles. Bill Spires, who had been on the disabled list most of the year, made his first start of the year at second base, and then on Sunday Seitzer played second. That's when Fletcher was hurt and Gantner as well, and Gantner still no sign as to whether he'll come back. Breaking ball is in for the strike. 0-2 now.
It's secondary to the Brewers being in the divisional race, but sentimentally, Phil Garner would love to get Jim Gantner in a game this weekend. The Brewers' last weekend at home this season could be Gantner's last season as a Milwaukee Brewer. He's been a big part of this organization for the last 14 years.
39-year-old veteran, along with Yount and Molitor. They have been the foundation of this franchise for a long time.
That's who they're chasing, those veterans. Molitor, Gantner, and Yount as a threesome. They've been together longer than any trio in the American League.
And a drive hit to right field, but Ruben Sierra was playing perfectly for Seitzer close to the right field line. There was a hit and one left. After 4 innings, we're all tied. Announced yesterday he'll be back for another year. Jim?
And seldom does a player call a press conference to announce he's going to keep playing, but there was so much speculation down in Texas. A lot of members of the press almost urging Nolan to maybe pitch one more game and hang it up, and that's why he had a press conference, said, hey, I like the direction this team is going in. I'm coming back next year.
That was a look at the no-hitter number 5, the finish of it, as Wilson fouls it back. 1 ball and 1 strike. Willie Wilson singled to center to start the game for the Athletics, and he was doubled up and in line to Robin Yount in center field a second time. Breaking ball and a soft liner picked up on the hop by B.J. Surhoff. He makes the play unassisted, and Wilson's retired for the first out. Coming up for the first time is Lance Blankenship. Blankenship replaced Jerry Brown in left field when Brown came up with a tight hamstring. Blankenship is hitting .250 on the season with 3 homers and 33 runs batted in, and he has really matured the last couple of years. First pitch from Bill Wegman, and it's popped up to the left side of the infield. Listash, step or 2 from the line, makes the catch. 2 out.
Blankenship, if you put him in a foot race with Ricky Henderson and Jose Canseco, when Canseco was there, I mean, he has that kind of speed. And again, that versatility to play in the outfield as well as any of the infield positions. A's waited for a while for him to, as you say, mature and become a big league player, and he has become that.
2 down. Bill Wegman has allowed 1 run on 4 hits. He has walked 3 and struck out 1, facing Ruben Sierra for the 3rd time. Pitch is low for a ball. And a line drive to right field. Darrell Hamilton is there, and a 1-2-3 inning. That's the first we've had in this game. So we have completed 4 1/2 here in Milwaukee County Stadium, all knotted up at 1-1. Taking a look at the National League Championship Series schedule, it'll open up in the West. Very likely Atlanta to this point. First 2 games, and then 3 games over in the East champion. Probably Pittsburgh the way it looks. Dave Nielsen leading off on the first pitch. He lines a base hit to right center field. Willie Wilson will cut it off and hold Nielsen to a single, but here comes a throw to second base offline, and Nielsen never stopped running, and he hustles in for a 2-base hit. That was sheer hustle by Dave Nielsen. And he might have caught Willie Wilson, if not napping, at least running the wrong way in the outfield for him.
Boy, what a good lesson to any hitter. When you get a base hit, never assume that it's just going to be a single. And Nielsen didn't assume that. He rounds first base, and as soon as he sees this, Willie Wilson lose that footing, he alertly continues towards second, and the off-line throw, he gets in with a head-first slide. So good alert base running by Dave Nielsen, despite not being one of the faster runners in that Brewer lineup.
The Brewers don't have a lot of fast runners, but they have opportunistic runners, and they take advantage of it 1 through 9 in the order. So the Brewers, trying to break a 1-1 logjam, have the leadoff man in scoring position in Scott Fletcher, who's a threat to bunt.
And no sooner did that ball hit the outfield, and you saw Phil Garner flashing the sign to Duffy Dyer, which would apparently be for a sacrifice for Scotty Fletcher to move him up.
McGuire poised to charge from first base. First pitch is taken for a strike. Darling is covering, and he bunts towards the third base side, and they're keeping Carney Lansford close to the bag in case there's a possible play at third to get Nielsen.
Yeah, the A's have a bit of an advantage here in Darling. He is an excellent fielder. He made 6 errors last year, but 5 of them are pickoff throws. He'll throw a ball away, but he gets off the mound as quick as any pitcher, so he can get to that third base line and field this bunt and get Nielsen at third.
Squares around, does not offer at it, and the pitch is taken for a ball. 1-1 to Fletcher. So Garner will flash one set of signs to Duffy Dyer. Brewers batting in the 5th. 1-1 the score. The Toronto Blue Jays trail the Yankees 2-1. Playing the bottom of the 8th inning at Yankee Stadium. A Brewer win and a Blue Jay loss would narrow the Toronto lead to only 2 games in the loss column in the American League East race. Bluff to second, where Weiss is practically 2 steps away from second and preventing Nielsen from getting any kind of lead there. That's how close Weiss is to second base. And a half swing roller, that's going to get the job done. Bordick makes the play to McGuire. Doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you do it, and Fletcher did, and Nielsen winds up on third.
Sometimes even when you don't want to do it. I mean, Scott Fletcher tried to hold up on this. It could just as easily have been a ground ball right to Darling. The Brewers get a bit of a break. There's the check swing. It ends up being a perfectly placed ground ball to advance Nielsen. Guess that's how you go 20-7 in the last 3 weeks or something. You have to have a few things like that happen too.
Probably if you had bunted it towards first, McGuire might have had to play at third or to third. The same with Darling. As Steinbach comes out to talk to Darling as Listash.
Yeah, the discussion here will be the suicide squeeze. You know, the A's will probably bring the infield in with Listash in the batter's box and the runner at third. He's tough to double up, and one of the threats right here is going to be the squeeze. So as a pitcher and a catcher, you want to know, most of the time with a left-hand hitter, you pitch outside toward third base. If it's a right-hand hitter, you throw in the same zone and knock him down.
Listash has been aboard twice. Tie-breaking run is on at third base with 1 out. Ball 1 to Pat Listash. Runner at third base is Dave Nielsen. Dyer goes over to talk to Nielsen at third base.
Yeah, and one of those could be a word sign, because hey, squeeze is on, or whatever it is.
Or S.
Yeah.
S would be a good one. Curveball in for the strike. 1-1.
In Philadelphia, we had Mike Schmidt, the great third baseman there, who went to Ohio U, the Bobcats, and our word sign was, if Billy DeMars walked over and said, hey, Bobcat, be alive, that was the word sign that the squeeze was on.
At least he didn't go to the University of Idaho and you say, hey, Vandal, the squeeze is on.
Yeah.
That would have been strange. 1 ball and 1 strike. Everyone poised here, and finally Listash calls timeout. This could be one of the big plays of the game. 1-1 the score. Each side has 4 hits. This is a pennant race or division race game. A's looking to win and clinch it in the West. Brewers want to pick up a game on the Blue Jays, who are trailing in the East. 1-1. A lead run potentially. Third base. The count is 1-1. Two and 1 to Listash. On deck is Darrell Hamilton. Any advantage to not giving Listash anything good in pitching to Hamilton, the on-deck batter?
I don't think so. No, it seldom pays unless you're pitching around a power hitter that can beat you with a long ball. You give the Brewers extra base runners, it'll usually hurt you more than it'll help you.
Here's Darling's 2-1 pitch, and a changeup misses. 3-1. Tony La Russa talking to Ricky Henderson. Doug Rader, former Angels manager, who's been La Russa's one of his lieutenants.
If you're going to think about putting one on and you're Phil Garner a squeeze play, this would be a bit of a surprise count. I mean, Darling has to throw a strike. The other option is Listash should probably get a fastball and a pitch he can drive a little bit.
He got a fastball, but it was up in the strike zone, fouled out of play, and the count is full.
You know, the squeeze play is the element of surprise, so a 3-1 count would obviously be a surprise, and that, I think, is why you saw Tony La Russa and Terry Steinbach looking at one another to communicate whether they wanted to anticipate that.
This is a chess game that could rival Fisher and Spassky.
They got a couple weeks off, don't they?
They should, after playing that grueling game. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Pat Listash. 1-1 the score. Lansford moves back a step at third. Same for McGuire at first base. Again, time called. And the waiting game goes on with Ron Darling, who's looking for his 16th win of the season. His best year was in 1988 when he was 17-9 with the Mets. He had a string of 6 straight years when he won 10 or more games. In a jam here. Here's the 3-2 pitch to Listash, and he fights it off and fouls it off to the left.
He's the most popular player in County Stadium today because he has given at least 20 fans a souvenir baseball in 3 at-bats. 17 pitches in the first at-bat, about a dozen foul balls.
There's the runner, Nielsen. He led off with a double. Listash trying to get him home and give the Brewers a lead here in the bottom of the 5th inning. 3-2 pitch to him, and he goes after a bad pitch, strikes out, and Steinbach throws to first. Darling backs up at home plate alertly. It's a strikeout, and the putout is made 2-3. Nielsen has to hold at third, and there are 2 gone. Big out for
great pitch by Darling and a good block by Steinbach. Look at the action on that forkball. I mean, the bottom falls out of that. If there's ever a situation where you want a strikeout, it's with a man on third base and 1 out. Darling gets his, and then Steinbach does a nice job of blocking the ball and getting that second out.
But the last place you want it is in the dirt, and Steinbach, who already has shown defensively by throwing out Listash, made a good play there. Well, the Yankees have defeated the Blue Jays 2-1. So the Brewers and their fans now see the final score posted, and they like what they see. Here's Darrell Hamilton with 2 out. Changeup is in for a strike. So an opportunity for the Milwaukee Brewers to pick up a full game on the Toronto Blue Jays and to come within 2 games, 2.5, but 2 in the loss column of the Blue Jays with a victory. Nielsen on at third with 2 out. 1-1. So right now the standings look like this. Toronto up by 3 games, but 2 in the loss column. Once you lose, you can't make it up. That's why a lot of people pay more attention to the loss column than the other.
They play 2 games against the Red Sox early next week, while Milwaukee will be playing 3 games out in California. That's where that extra game will be made up.
Outside, and the count is 2-1, and you'll hear even a bigger cheer, obviously, if Darryl Hamilton can deliver Nielsen in from third to give the Brewers the lead. So the Blue Jays have 2 against the Red Sox and finish at home at Skydome against the Detroit Tigers for 3. Brewers have 3 at California, or 3 at Seattle and 3 at Oakland. 3-1 now.
Paul Molitor on deck. If you're Darryl Hamilton and you're paying attention to the game, which I know he is, he's saying, I'm getting a fastball here. He's not going to tinker around and walk me with Molitor on deck. So be ready.
This has been a long but tense inning. Nielsen on at third base with 2 outs. 3-1 pitch, walks him. And runners now at first and third, and Molitor coming up. But first, let's go back to New York and check in with Pat O'Brien.
All right, Dick, going to show you the last out in the Bronx. Steve Farr strikes out Alomar and Winfield. Then Joe Carter flies out the center to end the game. The Yankees win 2-1. As you said, Toronto's magic number still at 5. 3 games over Milwaukee pending your game, Dick.
All right, Pat, so the drama heightens as Tony La Russa goes to the mound in a conference with Ron Darling with Paul Molitor. Very dangerous hitter in this situation with runners at first and third.
His conferences with Walt Weiss and not Ron Darling. Why? Well, with Molitor in the batter's box, Hamilton takes off. Now, if you're Walt Weiss and you break for second base, you don't want a nice ground ball by Molitor to go through into the outfield for a base hit. So that conference was Tony La Russa telling Weiss, hold your ground. Don't break too quickly and give up an easy base hit on a ground ball.
Molitor has been retired twice. Struck out looking his last time up. Infield is playing back with 2 out, runners at first and third. 3 walks given up by Darling thus far in the game. Brewers looking to forge in front. First pitch misses inside, and a real buoyant crowd. They might have criticized their lack of attendance in the Angels series this past week, but the cheeseheads are out.
Yeah.
Huh?
All shapes and sizes.
Toronto has his cone heads. They have the cheeseheads here in the cheese state, Wisconsin. And this crowd is really into it. 1-0 the count to Molitor. And there goes the runner. Hamilton is in at second base. 38th stolen base of the year for Hamilton. And the pitch was taken for a ball. 1-1 the count to Molitor. And runners now at second and third. So first base is open.
Nice option. You can walk Molitor and then you have to face Robin Yount.
Don't think so.
No.
Sun is trying to break through here. So are the Brewers. Grounded foul. In that victory by the Yankees over the Blue Jays, Bob Wickman, who is a Wisconsin native, beat the Blue Jays for the Yankees.
Brewers will give him they'll vote him in a share. They go ahead and win this thing.
Give him one of those cheesehead hats that some of the fans will.
Robin Yount book.
Darling is ahead of Molitor 1-2. Molitor usually makes good contact. And he swings and misses to end the inning. So Molitor strikes out, and the Brewers lead runners at the corners, so second and third in any event, and will return to Milwaukee's County Stadium after this word from your local station. The season 2:30 Eastern, either for a game with the race on the line, will be there, or a game involving a pennant contender. That'll be next Saturday on CBS.
Nice moment in the Oakland dugout. You see Ron Darling come over, get a few handshakes, and go to Terry Steinbach and give him a nice pat on me. He made a terrific pitch to Listash and to Molitor. You don't make Molitor look bad on pitches very often. Darling threw him a great fork ball, and Steinbach was right there to block it.
Mark McGwire is 2 for 2 with a single and a double. And he should be retired here as Seitzer goes across the diamond for the first out. Here in the 6th inning, McGwire with an RBI. His single knocked home Jerry Brown in the 3rd inning. Cincinnati trying to challenge the Braves, down 5 in the loss column coming into today's action, leading the Giants 1-0 in the top of the 3rd. Harold Baines, the DH, at the plate for the A's. In the bullpen for Milwaukee, Jesse Orosco and James Austin. Orosco has been throwing, just loosening up since the 2nd inning.
Yeah, it's out of the time now, right now, for Phil Garner in the 6th inning.
Strike 1 to Baines.
You know, Wegman has thrown, I've kept exact track of his pitches, close to 194, says Marty. So you'll see Garner go to that bullpen rather quickly.
Changeup is wrapped into left field for a base hit, and Baines is aboard. Looked like the Brewers had defensed him well on the left side of the infield, with third baseman Seitzer playing over towards second. Carney Lansford coming to the plate. He's back from the injuries we talked about. Not only back, but he is back on top.
It's been very gratifying coming back this year for me personally, having to overcome the major knee surgery and all the rehab I had to go through not only last season but all winter long this last winter. And for us to get back to the top of the pack and play fundamental baseball and sound Oakland A's style baseball, very gratifying for me this year.
And a ground ball hit foul, and Lansford really had to pay the price in that off-season rehabilitation, and he said he didn't know until really early in December that he knew he could come back and at least try in spring training.
And you use a lot of cliches when you talk about leaders on a team, you know, the heart and soul, etc. But I think Carney Lansford truly is that for this ball club.
Wrapped up the middle, really took Wegman's head off, and a base hit for Lansford, and runners are at first and second with 1 out. So Baines with a hit to the opposite field, and Lansford back-to-back singles.
Pitch down the middle, take it up the middle, and that got Bill Wegman's attention, probably got Phil Garner's attention more. And we talked about Ron Darling coming over to see Terry Steinbach. I wonder that last inning, some injury of some sort.
Might be because Jamie Quirk is going to bat for Steinbach. Phil Garner out of the dugout will go to the mound, and he is going to take Wegman out of there. He doesn't want Wegman to have one of his bad innings right here. That's been his history. And the report on Terry Steinbach is that he has a lower abdominal strain. So 2 of the A's out. Jerry Brown with a hamstring strain, and Steinbach with a lower abdominal strain, and Jesse Orosco, the veteran southpaw, will be coming in when we return to County Stadium in a moment. Jesse Orosco, 35-year-old southpaw who's had a very fine September. Orosco has allowed just 1 earned run in 5 innings of relief this September, and the left-hander is aboard, and he'll be facing a left-handed hitter, and Jamie Quirk will be batting for Steinbach.
Been so much a part of the success of both of these teams. Much improved bullpen by both the A's and the Brewers. And Orosco to get the left-hander out. We'll see probably Mike Fetters or Darren Holmes and Doug Henry, the right-handers down there. You see, Tony La Russa would probably like to pinch hit right here and hit a right-hand hitter, but he has one other catcher on the bench, rookie Henry Mercedes. He does not want to put him into this game of this magnitude right now. So Quirk is going to hit anyway, despite facing a tough left-hand pitcher in Orosco.
Eckersley, of course, having an MVP in many people's views. Cy Young kind of year with 51 saves, and that record. Been involved in 2/3 of Oakland's victories. Lee Smith heads the National League Derby with 40 saves.
Yeah, Eckersley's phenomenal year is taken some of the luster away from those other relievers like Rick Aguilera, who's had a great year, but Eckersley's had a near perfect year.
So here's Jamie Quirk, who's been in 71 games this year, and he has been a veteran force in the clubhouse and on the field for the A's for many years. 37-year-old facing Jesse Orosco with 1 out, runners at first and second. Here in the top of the 6th inning, 1-1 the score between the A's and the Brewers. Fastball misses, 1-0 the count to Quirk.
In this day of two-sport athletes, Saturday afternoon, college football time, he chose baseball, but Jamie Quirk could well have been playing quarterback for the Fighting Irish. He was heavily recruited by Notre Dame. Great high school quarterback.
And he's been 6 for 16 as a pinch hitter this year. He'd be playing the Purdue Boilermakers this afternoon.
He'd rather be right here.
I'm sure.
Pay is better. I think.
I won't touch that one. There's a pitch that misses outside, and it's 2 balls and no strikes. Well.
Yeah. They didn't need him today. They got a comfortable lead.
2 balls and no strikes with 2 on. On deck is Walt Weiss. Orozco in relief of Bill Wegman, who, after retiring the A's in order last inning, gave up back-to-back singles with 1 out here in the 6th. And Orozco can't find the plate. Falls behind 3-0.
Boy, that's a bit surprising. Jesse Orozco is a pitcher that can come in and just blow away left-hand hitters.
Former New York Met. Pitched for the Cleveland Indians last 3 years, and in between that, a little cameo with the Dodgers. There are the runners. Baines at second, Lansford on at first base. There's a fastball letter high, and it's now 3-1 to Jamie Quirk. Quirk was Kansas City's first-round selection back in 1972. Most of his career has been spent with the Royals, although he has been briefly with teams like the Cardinals, the White Sox, and the Orioles before coming to the A's. He's been with the A's on 2 occasions. The 3-1. On the inside corner. Well, Orozco needed a few pitches to find that strike zone, and the count now is 4. San Diego native. Trying to dispose of the bottom third of the A's batting order in a 1-1 game. Oakland's out hit Milwaukee 6-4. There goes the runners, and strike out. The throw to third base, and out at third base is Harold Baines. A strike him out, throw him out, double play as Tony La Russa sent him on 3 and 2 and 1 out. Nothing doing for the A's in the 6th inning. It is still a 1-1 ball game. Game tomorrow here against Oakland, then they finish on the road in Seattle and against the A's in 3 games in Oakland. The Blue Jays, whose magic number still is 5, will play the Yankees tomorrow, and then they're home for 2 against the Red Sox and the final 3 games of the regular season against the Detroit Tigers. 1-1 the score in the bottom of the 6th inning. And the Brewers will send up Robin Yount, Greg Vaughn, and B.J. Surhoff. Jamie Quirk, who pinch hit for Terry Steinbach, has gone into catch. Robin Yount is 0 for 2. Ron Darling. First pitch up high, ball 1. Missing inside, 2 balls and no strikes to Yount. Both teams have had big opportunities, Jim, in this game to forge in front by a couple of runs.
Tony La Russa will monitor this inning very, very closely. Darling had to make some tough pitches to get out of that 5th inning. Pitch count up there. He'll go to his bullpen rather quickly if needed.
Yount hits it in the air to right field. Sierra playing imperfectly near the line, makes the catch, and Robin Yount is 0 for 3. And there's 1 gone for the Brewers in the bottom of the 6th inning. One out, and Greg Vaughn. And welcome you viewers who've been watching the Pirates and the Mets at Three River Stadium. We're here at County Stadium, where the A's and the Brewers are tied 1-1 with 1 out in the bottom of the 6th inning. Dick Stockton and Jim Kaat here, and Greg Vaughn, the batter. He has been retired twice by Ron Darling. It's been a pitcher's duel, but both teams have had some major threats during the course of this game. First First pitch to Vaughn is taken for a ball. Milwaukee scored in the second inning when B.J. Surhoff scored. And an error by Jerry Brown, who has since left the game in left field. Kevin Seitzer with a base hit on a hit and run, and an error, and a drive hit deep to left field. Way back, it's gone. Home run for Greg Vaughn. Number 22 for Greg Vaughn, and the Brewers have taken a 2-1 lead. He has been silent all year. Their best run producer a year ago, but he has been hot in September and delivers a home run with 1 out in the 6th inning to give Milwaukee the lead.
Darling has been near perfect in tight situations all day, but that was a fork ball that he hung to Greg Vaughn. Now, we mentioned early in the game, he's got to keep that ball down around the knees, which he's done such a good job of it. Most of the game striking out Listash and Molitor in the last inning, but make a mistake against a power hitter like Vaughn, especially late in the game when that fork ball doesn't have quite the bite to it, and most of the time that's what happens.
15th home run issued by Ron Darling. So Greg Vaughn now with 74 runs batted in on the year. And he is delivering some of the pop that the Brewers have missed during the season, and it's 2-1 Milwaukee. The Blue Jays, as you know, lost to the Yankees 2-1, and the Brewers are in a position to pick up a full game on Toronto and trail by 2.5 games or 2 in the loss column if they win. And he hit it right at Vaughn's Valley. So with 1 out and a 2-1 game, B.J. Surhoff facing Ron Darling. And you know what's at stake for the A's today. A victory will clinch the American League West Championship and a trip to the LCS for the 4th time in 5 years. But the A's trail. Darling, looking for his 16th victory of the year, has been one of the stalwarts as a starter for Oakland this year. And he falls behind Surhoff 2-0. Surhoff has walked and singled in 2 trips to the plate. 2-1 the count now to B.J.
Ron Darling has really earned the respect of his teammates since coming over to Oakland, and from a standpoint of being players that call it a gamer, you know, he spills everything out there that he has every start. He's done that today. I think that home run was a result of the tough earlier innings.
And a pop fly hit to shallow right field. Mike Bordick will call for it and make the catch for out number 2. And that's a good point, because the Brewers had base runners. In fact, they have left 5 men on base coming into this inning, and they had threats going, stolen bases, attempted stolen bases, and that had to take its toll.
He's not had a 1-2-3 inning yet. Granted, Listash was gunned down stealing, so he faced the minimum 3, but he's had to work out of the stretch every inning.
See the scores. The Reds leading the Giants 1-0. Atlanta is finding things a lot closer than they anticipated out in the National League West. Here's Kevin Seitzer. 1 for 2 with a single. Takes a call strike. Brewers scored. A hit and run situation with Surhoff running. Seitzer hit a base hit to the vacated spot. They kept running, and Brown misplayed a ball in left field. And that's how Milwaukee scored their first run. The A's tied it up in the 3rd inning on an RBI single by Mark McGwire with 2 out. And then Vaughn's homer here in the 6th is untied. 2-1 now to Seitzer. Off a fastball upstairs to the right. Weather has cleared considerably. We had rain all morning and scheduled to have showers and thunder showers all day today, and it was going to be closest to whether they would get the game in. There's James Austin, who was warming up with Orozco before. Jesse Orozco has come in for Wegman for the Brewers. 2 balls, 2 strikes. 3-2 now to Seitzer.
Phil Garner has James Austin, Mike Fetters, or Darren Holmes that he'll go to down there to set up Doug Henry. In fact, he'll use Holmes on occasion to save some games. Well, he's got a good deep bullpen.
Yeah, it's been more than just the outstanding 4 starters for him. 3-2 pitch is popped up down the right field line, and Mike Bordick will make the catch in foul territory to end the inning. But Greg Vaughn's one-out homer has given the Brewers a 2-1 lead as we move to the 7th inning here at County Stadium.
Is brought to you by your Toyota dealer, who invite you to discover the all-new Corolla. Rolaids. Rolaids spells 100% relief. And by Reebok, to remind you that life is short. Play hard.
Well, this is a bona fide pennant race game. Make no mistake about it. One team can clinch a division. They've got the champagne iced away, and the other club can pick up a game on Toronto.
Boy, it's an ideal setup, and the way these two teams have been playing, with Brewers continue to get great pitching, 2 back-to-back shutouts, 2 shutouts in a row last week, and as we'd expect, it would come down to a battle of the bullpens, and that's what's going to decide it today. Who's got the best bullpen?
2-1. We have a home run in the game. We have some outstanding defensive plays. What more do you want? Well, Walt Weiss will lead off, and if you're Tony La Russa, you want a man to get aboard here. Trailing 2-1 in the 7th inning. The totals after 6. 2 runs, 5 hits, no errors for the Brewers. 1-6-1 for the A's. One of the 2 runs was unearned for Milwaukee. Weiss has been aboard once with a walk. 0 for 1. Jesse Orozco's first pitch. Strike to Walt Weiss.
You see that sign from Nielsen. He'll take that one finger, which is normally the fastball, and twirl it around. That's a backdoor slider sign. Jesse Orozco is a left-hander that really has the ability to break that slider out across the outside corner. They call it the backdoor slider.
Fastball, and it's driven to left center field. Vaughn on a big run makes a great catch. Left center field, he had a mammoth run, did Greg Vaughn. So he has helped the Brewers with his bat and his glove this afternoon.
Wow. That is some play. I mean, that begins to give the guys in that dugout, hey, good things are happening to our team. I mean, one thing that's gone a bit unnoticed this year is the great improvement the Brewers have made in the field. And Vaughn, not known as a particularly great outfielder, makes what could be a game-saving catch. That's a leadoff double, no doubt.
Weiss got a hold of that fastball by Orozco, but Vaughn with a sensational play. 1 away to Mike Bordick, who is 0 for 2 this afternoon. First pitch is low to him, ball 1. Brewers lead the American League in fielding. You already mentioned how they've given up the fewest runs, hits, and walks, and have the best ERA in the league. Doesn't come by accident, does it, to contend.
And when you look at the overall numbers of league stats, and they can be deceptive, but if you weren't following the pennant races, you'd say Milwaukee has the best record in the American League. They lead the league in pitching. They're second in the league in average for hitting. They're up there near the top in runs scored and good fielding. The only thing they've probably missed is an occasional long ball at the right time.
Pitch is in there for strike 2 and 1, and that's why they've had to play this style game. And if you're even or close or ahead, you can play it. And the problem for the Brewers comes when they fall way behind in the middle to late innings. It's not as effective. 2 balls and a strike to Bordick with 1 out. That's up high, 3 and 1.
And that's why the A's have the best record. They have that long ball element from McGuire mainly, but they have won more high-scoring games this year than any American League team. They are the kind of team that when they're down 3 or 4 to 1 late can come back with the long ball.
The 3-1. And he loses him. So Bordick gets aboard with 1 out. The tying run is at first base. That is the 4th walk given up by Milwaukee pitching, and the first by Orozco. And the top of the order coming up for Oakland, and Willie Wilson, the switch hitter, now batting from the right side where he's hitting .252 on the year.
That's why Phil Garner will allow Jesse Orozco to face Willie Wilson. As the case with Walt Weiss, they'd rather see Wilson hit from the right side of the plate. Everyone concerned who's going to cover. Hit and run, steal. How are you going to pitch this guy? You going to pitch him away? Okay, then we'll probably have the shortstop cover. You're going to come inside, we'll have the second baseman cover. That's what all those little conferences on the mound are usually about.
In the Milwaukee bullpen, Dan Plesac has joined James Austin. Plesac picked up a save last night in the victory over the A's. Here's the pitch to Wilson, and it's grounded to third. Seitzer over to second for one. The throw to first. Not easy to double Willie Wilson. But Seitzer got the big hop, and the third Milwaukee double play of the game. Started off with a great play in left by Greg Vaughn. So the Brewers have to feel very good about themselves right now, leading 2-1 going to the bottom of the seventh. You can make an argument for any of these three for manager of the year, and they all deserve it. You can do that, but you know what Tony La Russa did this year with all of the injuries, I may give him the nod. First pitch to Nielsen is taken for strike one.
But I think what often happens sentimentally, you see new managers like Oates and Garner, and it'll probably be one of those two, despite what you said about La Russa. Very accurate.
Nielsen, who doubled his last time up and was stranded at third, fouls it off in the count. No balls and 2 strikes. Yeah, very often it's the surprise, and Phil Gardner is a surprise. His first year as a manager, contending going into the last week of the season. Like I said, you could have arguments for everybody. Johnny Oates, Orioles lost 90 games last year.
Last week when we saw Garner, Chuck Tanner was next to him. Tanner's been a good influence on him. He's a Brewer scout. Of course, he managed Phil out in Oakland as well as in Pittsburgh. Both teams that ran a lot.
Ball and 2 strikes. Both bullpens are active right now. In the Milwaukee bullpen, Neil Heaton and Mike Fetters. You mentioned Fetters would be up before the end of this game, and he is. And for the Oakland A's, Jim Corsi down the line. They're concerned with Jeff Russell. We'll tell you more about it as the pitch is taken in tight 2-2. Russell acquired from Texas, and a lot of people say that's why the deal was made, to bridge the gap from the starters to Dennis Eckersley, or even give Eck a breather once in a while. He's had a sore elbow.
And has not pitched for a while and may not pitch for a while, along with Rick Honeycutt.
3-2 now.
But all year long, someone has stepped up for Oakland. Jeff Parrott for a while, now Jim Corsi, even Kelly Downs, who is not in the rotation anymore. Now we've got something going on here with Darling and Evans, and La Russa does not like it. He's going to come out immediately.
La Russa still has a beef of that controversial play in the second inning when Mike Bordick was ruled out at first base when it appeared he was safe and the A's would have had a run.
Look at those eyes. You think he's serious about this game?
Got the eyes of a lawyer, which he is.
He said, I watched him, and he said, what's the count? As if Ron Darling was questioning the count, and Evans said, no, he was questioning my strike zone. I think he said something like, I made a pretty good pitch, and I thought it was a strike.
Something like that. Of course, he went to Yale, so I'm sure he used only the utmost vocabulary. Pretty intelligent duo there, La Russa and Ron Darling.
I'll say.
Count is 3-2 to Nielsen. Leading off here in the bottom of the seventh. 2-1. Milwaukee in front. Ball 4. And Nielsen's aboard. That is the third walk issued by Darling. Still going at him. Time is called and Court goes to the mound. So 4 walks given up by Darling. He has also struck out 4.
Now this is the pitch again that the A's, Ron Darling and La Russa, thought they had first strike. That's well inside. I think La Russa was reacting to Darling's reaction. See, because from the bench you cannot tell whether that pitch is in or out. Tony's probably saying, hey, it was high enough, but that pitch was well inside.
So Scott Fletcher comes to the plate, and we'll have a pinch runner. Alex Diaz will run for Nielsen on at first base, and The Brewers will be looking to sacrifice here to get that insurance run in scoring position. Their lead 2-1. Fletcher 0 for 2 on the afternoon. McGuire from first and Lansford from third, getting ready to charge. Diaz has good speed. And the pitch bunted to McGuire. Perfect sacrifice executed. McGuire to Bordick covering. And there's one out, but Diaz moves to second in scoring position.
Boy, if ever a team is doing everything you should do to win a baseball game, it's the Milwaukee Brewers. Excellent execution right here. You advance a runner into scoring position. They've made great plays in the field. Greg Vaughn with that great catch out in left center, and a long ball. You don't look for the Brewers to get the long ball, as well as good pitching. They've covered all phases of the game to keep this 2-1 lead here in the 7th inning.
Brewers are the hottest team along with the Oakland A's since the All-Star break. And if the Brewers win today, they would be the winningest team since the All-Star break, and Oakland would slip to second. And that is why, if you walk around the A's dressing room, not that they want or rather play one team or another, but they know how pesky and tough and hot the Brewers are. Here's Pat Listash. 1 for 2 with a single, is also walked. Bluffed to second, no one covering as Diaz dives back.
That's good. You go into pinch run, dive into base, get your uniform dirty, get your heart ticking a little bit, make you feel like you're part of the game. So even though the slide was not necessary, it served its purpose.
Listash fouls back the fastball. 0-1 the count. The outfield is playing around to the left and shallow. So a line drive by Listash could be handled by the outfield.
Yeah, here again is the situation, man on second, one out. Garner has used the hit and run. You try to get Lansford to retreat toward third base and open up that hole so Listash can slap it through there.
And because the outfield is playing shallow, you may not get him in with a hard hit base hit to the outfield. So hit and run could be in order. He doesn't go on 0-1, and the pitch is bounded foul off to the right. Old scrap iron Phil Garner, living up to his nickname with his managerial style. Pat Listash, who was penciled in for AA or AAA this year. And Yeoman's service at shortstop. He's the batter with the count, no balls and 2 strikes, trying to protect the plate here. And he swings and fouls it at the plate, so he stays alive. Court couldn't hold on to it. A's could have clinched last night had they won and the Minnesota Twins lost. But the Brewers beat the A's last night, so they still need that single win or a Minnesota loss. The Twins are playing Kansas City tonight. So it's conceivable that the A's could lose this afternoon and still wake up tomorrow as the American League West champions if the Royals down Minnesota. One out, runner in scoring position. Pinch runner Alex Diaz. That's low, 1-2. Brewers have had a base runner in every inning. At least a base runner. The big home run by Greg Vaughn with 1 out in the 6th has been the big blow in a 2-1 game. Brewers in front. Darling with a long look at Diaz. Listash fouls it out of play, and if he hangs in there, he could be up there for a while.
Yeah. Might be a good moment just to say hello. I'm sure he's watching today. Mike Bellani in Buffalo, general manager of the Buffalo Bisons. Boy, he's run a great franchise there for years and was injured in a bicycling accident on his road to recovery. So we hope you're watching, Mike, and we hope you get well soon.
He has been a great breath of fresh air in the front office for that fine AAA franchise in Buffalo. Mike Bellani, in fact, I had a chance to sit next to him at a luncheon during the season, and he says we had a Pirate game the next week. He said, when you see Jim Leland, tell him to, you know, let us keep some of those outstanding players, because that's the Pirate AAA Farm Club. Leland said, I've got worries of my own. Today he doesn't, though, with a big lead. 2 balls and 2 strikes. The count to Listash. On deck is Darrell Hamilton. Almost offered at it. Checked his swing. And the count is full, 3-2. So Listash has now seen 32 pitches in his 4 trips to the plate. Two to 1 Milwaukee. Brewers batting in the 7th. In the game they need. Blue Jays already lost to the Yankees. Pickoff attempt. Weiss got between the bag and Diaz, trying to take advantage of the rookie at second.
Boy, I don't think Richie Garcia, the second base umpire, isn't paying attention either. Look where he is on this call as Diaz just gets his hand on. I mean, Richie Garcia is about 5 feet from that play. He comes in alertly to see that Diaz just got the hand in there.
Richie couldn't have gotten any closer, and time called, and it looks like Diaz might have injured a hand getting back to the bag. Hasn't been a good day for catchers. Catchers staying in the game. Terry Steinbach suffered a strained abdominal muscle and had to be replaced by Jamie Quirk. Nielsen run for here in the 7th inning.
Looks like he jammed the finger. That's why a lot of base runners today will put that. It's almost like a bowler's glove. They either put it on their wrist or they'll put a glove in their hand to keep from injuring the finger when you go back in, like poke it into the base that Diaz just did. He doesn't have anything in there.
Listash should get a piece of the action here.
Yeah.
3 balls, 2 strikes, 1 out. Diaz is all right. He has his lead at second base. And the pickoff attempt is thrown into center field. Diaz will get to third base and be held up there by Dyer as Willie Wilson retrieves. So that backfired, and with 1 out, a fly ball or a well-placed ground ball will get the insurance run in.
Outstanding fielding pitcher we mentioned earlier, but Ron Darling made 6 errors last year, and 5 of them were on plays just like this. I can relate to that. There are a lot of good fielding pitchers that still have some problems throwing. You want to unload it so quickly that you don't really pick up your target, and you throw it a little off balance and end up throwing it into center field.
I don't think you can relate to errors, not with 16 gold gloves, but that's another story.
A lot of throws like that.
Infield is in now with the count 3-2. They want to cut the runner off at the plate, and Listash fighting it off, stays alive. So the situation is this. The Brewers broke a 1-1 tie with a home run by Greg Vaughn last inning. Dave Nielsen drew a walk. Alex Diaz went in to pinch run for him, was sacrificed by Fletcher, and went to third on a throwing error by Darling. And the count is 3-2 with 1 out. Infield in. And not an easy task to dispose of the rookie shortstop for the Brewers.
These have been great battles. I'll tell you, Ron Darling mentioned early on he's got the respect of his teammates, but he's earned even more today with that pitch count up there and called on to make pitch after pitch in a 1-run game, and he has done it. The 1 hanger, and that's been about it. 121 pitches.
He'll have to come back 3-2. Strikes out Listash. So once again, an exclamation point on your comment about Ron Darling. That is his 5th strikeout of the ball game, and they're a 2 down, a big out for the A's.
Yeah, because 2 of these strikeouts of Listash have come with a man on third and 1 out. You might only strike out 50 men a year, but if you can do it in these situations, it'll help you win ball games.
So the infield moves back, although with Darrell Hamilton up, he's 0 for 2 with a walk and a stolen base. Carney Lansford is playing a few steps in at third base. Changeup is outside, ball 1. You never know with Phil Gardner what he has up his sleeve.
That's why Darling's working from the set, as a lot of pitchers do with a man on third base. Stretch position, no windup. Give Diaz no opportunity if he has any thoughts about trying to steal home.
Diaz had 38 stolen bases in the American Association this year to lead the league when he was promoted to Milwaukee. There's the Brooklyn native on at third base. with 2 outs and the count 2-0 to Hamilton. Paul Molitor on deck. I would think Hamilton should get a good pitch here, but it misses outside. 3-0. Well, the last time we had the scenario, Hamilton drew the walk, stole second, and Darling struck out Paul Molitor to end that threat in the 5th inning. Now 3-1. Lansford back a step now, with the count 3 balls and 1 strike. Diaz with the lead at third. Fly ball to right field, and Ruben Sierra makes the catch, and that'll end the threat. So the Brewers are now 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position, but they have a 2-1 lead as we go to the 8th. Run for the Brewers in the 2nd inning. Mark McGwire with his 101st RBI in the 3rd, and then the home run by Greg Vaughn. The scoring in this 2-1 game as we move to the 8th inning. John Jaha has replaced B.J. Surhoff at first base because Surhoff goes behind the plate. And the new pitcher, Mike Fetters, the 3rd pitcher of the afternoon for the Brewers, and the first pitch to Lance Blankenship is taken for ball 1. Fetters having an outstanding year with that earned run average of 1.21.
Good fork ball. Rare for a baseball player to come out of Pepperdine, though they won the national title this year, and that's where Fetters played his college ball.
You were there when they won it. Rosenblatt Stadium in Omaha.
So many players you get to see in the big leagues today have earned their way up here by getting scouted at the good college programs.
2-1, the Brewers in front. Blankenship takes inside, and the count is 2-1. Blankenship went in to play left field when Jerry Brown had to come out of the ball game because of a strained hamstring. Like Brown, Blankenship has been a jack of all trades for Tony La Russa in the infield and outfield. Here's the 2-1 pitch, and a line drive to right field. Hamilton is over, makes the catch. Hit solidly by Lance, but he's retired, and there's 1 gone in the 8th inning.
Well, you see Hamilton breathe a sigh of relief. That ball was hit with the sun being in and out today, but Darrell did not get a real good look at that. No sunglasses, and you see him fight it off right at the last moment. A little trouble picking up the ball, and as Bill Wegman said to start the game, you have to keep the little guys off the bases because right now you're working through 3 hitters that can take you out of the ballpark.
Here's Ruben Sierra. There's one who could do it. He's been retired 3 times today. Takes ball 1 from Fetters. Orozco worked an inning in 2/3, and he is the pitcher of record if the Brewers hold their lead. Montreal over Chicago 12-0. There's a line drive to right field, and Hamilton comes over and makes a great catch. We have seen 2 brilliant plays made by the Brewers outfield. Greg Vaughn in left field in the 7th, and here Darrell Hamilton to Rob Sierra of extra bases here in the 8th.
And you saw that reaction from the Brewers bench. These guys are not watching the game from the bench. They're watching from the top step, and they have seen their teammates out in the field play as solid a baseball as you can play. You put that catch together with Greg Vaughn's. I mean, even though when you pick up the box score tomorrow morning, you don't see it's plays like that that help you win games. Managers will tell you that over above anything. Make the plays in the field is what determines the winning teams from the also-rans.
Mark McGwire with 2 out. And if you think that the Brewers are frustrated because they keep winning and the Blue Jays keep winning, they're not. There's a line drive to center field. Yount coming on in, and he makes the catch. All 3 outfielders have made fine plays. A 1-2-3 inning, and a big cheer for the Brewer defense.
Can't work on these things in spring training. This is why Darrell Hamilton has become the regular right fielder. Not only his ability to hit, but look at that sliding catch. Takes a sure double away from Ruben Sierra. And when the inning was over. Don't think his Brewer teammates didn't appreciate it. I mean, they've been on the top step for most of this game. They ran halfway out to right field to greet him with some high fives. I don't blame him.
See, they may be winning, and the Blue Jays had been winning as well. But Phil Garner said, we'll put pressure on them if we continue to win. Now, today, the Blue Jays lost, and so the Brewers batting here in the bottom of the 8th inning, 3 outs away from moving to within 2.5 games of Toronto. Jim Corsi is the new pitcher for the A's. Ron Darling worked 8 innings. So Corsi, or 7 I should say, Corsi's aboard, has allowed only 1 earned run in his last 19 1/3 innings. So he has been effective as of late.
Good sinker, good slider, and he's been one of those, along with Kelly Downs and Jeff Parrott, that will serve as this setup role with Jeff Russell on the bench. And if they get the lead, we know who it is. Well, maybe Phil Garner was right. He said, I'll guarantee you this time we're going to win the 5th straight. 8 times they've won 4 in a row. But only the Red Sox, the Phillies, and the Brewers are the only 3 teams in baseball that have never won 5 in a row. It's pretty unusual for a team with a winning record like the Brewers to do that.
And they couldn't pick a better time to win their 5th in a row if that's in the cards. Paul Molitor, pleased to be facing a new pitcher. I'm sure he struck out twice against Ron Darling, 0 for 3 in the ballgame. And the first pitch is grounded in the hole. Walt Weiss with a long throw gets Molitor. And there's 1 gone in the Brewers' 8th inning.
Talked about some of the hitters that we've seen today. Paul Molitor is very unusual. And watch his left foot, front leg. He'll take very little stride. You'll see that knee flex just a little bit. He won't take much of a stride. And that's what makes him so difficult to pitch to as a pitcher. See, just a little bit of a pickup, put it back down. That's what enables him to be quick on the inside pitch and yet cover the whole plate.
Robin Yount, 0 for 3, takes a strike. The Brewers have 5 hits. Only 2 extra base hits, a double by Nielsen and a home run by Greg Vaughn. And that is the big blow as this game stands. A 1-out homer in the 6th inning to give Milwaukee a 2-1 lead, and that's where we are with 1 out here in the bottom of the 8th inning, and the count 0-2 to Robin Yount. Bullpen activity again for both clubs. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Brewers have their ace closer Doug Henry, and that's what they've tried to do with Orozco and Fetters, is get it to Henry in the 9th inning. In the A's bullpen, Vince Horsman and Sean Hillegas, who has recently have been with the Yankees. Horsman, former Toronto pitcher.
Just for 1 left-hand hitter, in this case possibly B.J. Surhoff if he gets to the plate.
1-2 pitch, check swing, held up, says Greg Kosk.
And even though Doug Henry is throwing in the Milwaukee bullpen, Darren Holmes has also saved some games. And if Phil Garner is quick to say he would call Henry in and say, you're struggling a little bit right now, I'm going to back you off for a week or so. So even though he has been the closer, it's been, by his own admission, a struggling type of year for him.
Check swing off the fist and a 1-hopper back to Corsi. And Yount is retired and there's 2 down. Yeah, Holmes has 5 saves and Henry leads with 26, but he's not afraid to go to Holmes. 2 down and a hand for Greg Vaughn. Not only did Greg Vaughn hit the deciding blow to this point, a home run, his 22nd of the year in the 6th inning to give the Brewers their 1-run lead, but he made a dazzling running catch in left center field to rob Walt Weiss of extra base hits to lead off the 7th inning.
That was his crowd out in left field, Vaughn's Valley, paying homage to him there when he stepped in the batter's box.
So a 2 down, Vaughn the batter. Strike 1 on the inside corner. The Mets are trailing the Pirates 18-2, and Bill Pacoda, an infielder, is now pitching for the Mets, the first position player ever to take the mound in New York Met history. Remember when Bert Campaneris went to the mound when he played all 9 positions?
Cesar Tovar did the same thing in Minnesota.
Well, we know he won't be pitching many more times because Pacoda has just given up a home run to Andy Van Slyke. It's not going to mean the ball game, but it could mean Pacoda's pitching future.
Probably says a lot about the Mets year, doesn't it, that Bill Pacoda's pitching in September.
Giants in front of Cincinnati 3-1. Good news for the Braves as Vaughn takes ball 3-1.
And now here's where normally on 3-1 you might challenge a hitter, but with a 2-1 ball game, Vaughn having home run power, I doubt that Jamie Quirk and Jim Corsi are going to give him anything on the inner half to hit. They'll make him chase something, even with the 3-1 count.
2 down, the bases are clear. Corsi's pitch, and it's past third baseman Lansford into left field. Looked like a play Lansford could make, and good hustle in left field by Blankenship will hold Greg Vaughn to a single. That's his 2nd hit of the ball game. He hit it hard as Lansford tried to backhand it.
Well, they tried to get in there, and he was ready for it. By the time Carney Lansford retreated, looked like he got a bit of an in-between hop. Carney tried to play it to the side, never got leather on it.
Base hit number 6 for the Brewers. The hits are even. And here is B.J. Surhoff, who has walked, singled, and popped out. Takes strike 1.
And you may see Vaughn run early in this count. Jamie Quirk did not start the game. Not throwing as well as Steinbach, and Phil Garner would love to get another runner to scoring position for Surhoff.
So the Blue Jays lose to the Yankees 2-1. The Brewers can pick up a full game if they hold on to their 2-1 lead. If the A's can strike back in the 9th inning to at least tie the game or win it and eventually win, they will clinch the American League West title, but they're on the short end now. 1 ball and 1 strike to count to Surhoff. Looking ahead to the Oakland 9th inning, it'll be scheduled hitters Harold Baines, Carney Lansford, and Jamie Quirk. The 5, 6, and 7 hitters in the Oakland lineup. Ground ball, gloved beautifully by McGuire. He'll step on the bag for the out, and that'll retire the side. There was a hit in 1 left, and the A's come up for their last opportunity, trailing 2-1. Well, tomorrow it's NFL action here on CBS. Most of you will see the Atlanta Falcons travel to Soldier Field to take on the Chicago Bears. Others will see Tampa Bay at Detroit or Minnesota at Cincinnati. It all begins with the NFL Today, the last word before kickoff tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern here on CBS Sports. Doug Henry, the closer for the Brewers, on in the 9th inning facing Harold Baines, and the first pitch misses for a ball, 1-0.
Even Henry coming into the game, Phil Garner immediately gets Holmes and Plesac up in the bullpen. That tells you, though, even though Henry's his closer, he's not Eckersley.
Fastball in. Well, his earned run average is 4.19, which is really outlandish for a closer.
Yeah. And the key is if he's got good command of that slider. Now, against Baines, he's going to throw primarily fastballs away, but to the righties, he'll throw real good slider.
Catches the corner. Ahead of him 1-2.
And if early on Garner sees that he's not sharp, he wants to have both those guys in the bullpen ready.
A's have struggled against the Brewers not only this season but in recent years. They trail 4-3 in the season series. They've lost 10 out of their last 13 against Milwaukee. And the Brewers are trying to nail down their 5th in a row for the first time this year after coming close 8 times. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Baines, who's 1 for 3 today. Mentioned how Baines is an outstanding road hitter this year for Oakland and has also hit Milwaukee pitching very well. Foul tip, and Surhoff couldn't quite hold on to it, so Baines stays alive.
And you can see the consistent pattern of those pitches. Late in the game, takes 3 singles most of the time to score a run, only 1 long ball. And the one thing you want to stay away from is that area inside where they can pull it.
2-2 to Baines. Kept it away from him, but the count runs full, 3-2. Carney Lansford is on deck. is David Henderson, who has been injury riddled and seems to pull something every time he gets off the DL or has a chance to get back in action. 3-2 to Baines. Doug Henry with the payoff pitch strikes out Baines for out number 1 in the 9th.
Been a long time since we've seen a game where so many 3-2 pitches are critical to the outcome of a ball game. Darling with 2 big strikeouts, Listash and Molitor, and Henry with a blazer right past Harold Baines.
He's got to contend with Carney Lansford, who singled his last time up. Fastball on the edge for strike 1. Good velocity shown by Doug Henry, the 4th pitcher for the Brewers today, trying to wrap it up for Jesse Orozco and bring Milwaukee to within 2 games in the loss column of the Toronto Blue Jays. 1-1 to Lansford. Jamie Quirk is on deck for the A's. Ground ball to shortstop. Listash retires Carney Lansford, and they're down to 1 out. And a hand with 2 out, and we want to thank some people while we have a moment. The coordinating producer of Major League Baseball on CBS is Rick LaCivita. Today's telecast was produced by Bob Beekus and directed by Bob Fishman. The coordinating producer of Baseball 92 is Eric Mann. Baseball 92 was produced by Rob Silverstein and directed by Duke Struck. The senior producer of CBS Sports is Ed Gorin. 2 out to Jamie Quirk. Struck out, pinch hitting for Terry Steinbach. It is only plate appearance. Swing and a miss, strike 1. Orozco, Fetters, and Henry. 3 1/3 innings, no runs and no hits. The bullpen has been the hero on the mound today for Milwaukee. One ball and 1 strike. Toronto lost, so the Brewers can cut the lead to 2.5 games.
Been a great story. Doug Henry really took over this closer's job by accident. Came in against the Minnesota Twins in a mop-up role and impressed the Brewers. Next thing you know, he was the stopper instead of Dan Plesac.
Here's the pitch. Fastball in there. Strike 2, 1-2. Pittsburgh's the final, but they won't clinch. They'll clinch a tie. Montreal also winning big. Here's the 1-2 pitch, and a fly ball hit to shallow left field. Calling for it is Listash, and Listash makes the catch. And the Brewers have won, and the A's could not clinch, and Milwaukee has inched closer to the Blue Jays.
After 8 tries, 4-game winning streaks, they couldn't get that 5th. They got it today at the most opportune time.
2-1. The Brewers beat the A's, and this is the reaction from the Milwaukee dugout. They keep winning. They have won 21 of their last 28 games. And so in the American League East, 2.5 games. Toronto lead over Milwaukee, 2 in the loss column, and it's getting close. Final score is 2-1, and we'll be back to County Stadium in just a moment. Orozco gets the win. Darling the loss. Henry is 27th save, and the big home run by Greg Vaughn, who also made a dazzling play in left field. And our Chevrolet player of the game is Greg Vaughn of the Milwaukee Brewers, and Chevrolet will donate $1,000 in his behalf to the Special Olympics. The story in the American League East, and it's getting closer, and Oakland could not clinch today. I'm Dick Stockton saying so long from Milwaukee's County Stadium. The final score, the Brewers 2 and the Athletics 1.
CBS Sports presents Major League Baseball. Today's game is brought to you by Kellogg's, the best to you each morning. Pert Plus, shampoo plus conditioner in one bottle, one step to great-looking hair. And by Toyota and their full line of quality cars and trucks. Toyota, I love what you do for me.
You've been watching Major League Baseball on CBS Sports, home of the biggest games in baseball, the League Championship Series and the World Series. So long, everybody.